We're back with a full hour of news for you starting at 8. Back now to Jeff at the Gherkin.
Martin, many thanks. Now, over the weekend, Ireland became the first country in the Eurozone to exit successfully a bailouts programme. The country was forced to seek 85 billion euros from the EU and IMF in 2010. The rescue package came with painful conditions. The Irish government has increased taxes, cut spending and slashed public sector jobs in an effort to restore fiscal credibility. The former Celtic Tiger was trapped by the credit crunch. Since the third quarter of 2008, its unemployment rate has risen from just over 7% to 13%. The worst hit have been young people, with more than 1 in 4 under 25s out of work, prompting 22,000 of them to leave the country in the past year alone. And the Irish housing market is still under the cosh, with nearly 20% of residential and buy-to-let mortgages in arrears of more than 90 days. Well, earlier I spoke to Brendan Howlin, Ireland's Public Expenditure Minister. I put it to him that there was something admirable about the way the Irish people had sucked up their tough medicine, but why had they been so acquiescent?
Well, I think people understood what needed to be done, and anger isn't a solution. We needed to balance our books. We needed to ensure that people will continue to invest in Ireland, to be the right place for foreign direct investment, and to fix what was broken here. We were let down by oversight and politics for a while, and people understood that, so they changed the government. They gave a new mandate to a new government to take decisive action and get the job fixed as quickly as possible, and we've done it.
In many respects, you have confounded the so-called experts who predicted that a tough fiscal consolidation would kill all growth. That's not happened, has it?
Well, we have modest enough growth this year. We're expecting something like 0.2%, but we're optimistic about growth for next year. Our budget projection is a growth rate of 2% of GDP next year, although the Employers' Confederation this morning have projected an even larger growth next year. So yes, and more importantly, the time delay that we feared in creating jobs hasn't happened. And we've managed to create some 60,000 jobs in the last 12 months. So from losing 7,000 or 8,000 jobs a month, we're now creating more than 1,000 new jobs a week in this economy. So there is a confidence. It's going to be slow. The recovery will be measured, but people understand that. And I think that people understand that getting the job done was the priority of this government.
The current account is looking much better, but the capital account is horrendous. Your accumulated sovereign debt is about 120% of GDP. That's going to take a long time to pay off.
Yeah, we went from one of the lowest indebted countries with a GDP debt of about 24-25% at the beginning of this crisis to peak this year at a debt of about 124%. Yes, that is extremely high. But a chunk of that is our own money on deposit, because we have our own built-in backstop to ward against any uncertainties that might arise in the next 12 months. And we have strategies, obviously, to deal with indebtedness over time. The first of it being, obviously, to have a balanced budget. We'll have a structured balanced budget this year, and we'll then start eating into that debt. But the key to it is to have a growing economy, and that's what we aim to have.
Can I just pick you up on that point? Because, of course, your debt, your overall sovereign debt, will continue to balloon while the government is running an annual deficit. I thought your deficit was going to be running this year and next year.
Well, we obviously have a debt in as much as we have a huge chunk of repayments to be made. But in terms of day-to-day expenditure, our expenditure and our tax base now are in balance. In terms of the future, we obviously want to continue to work to that, grow the economy, grow the income to the state by having more people at work, and thereby reduce the overall level of debt. But as you know, it's our objective next year to have a deficit of 4.8% of GDP. We've exceeded every target to date, and we certainly will achieve that 4.8%, and to have a deficit of less than 3% by 2015.
And what about the housing market? That will continue to act like a ball and chain, will it not? I read with surprise this morning that more than 20% of all mortgages in Ireland are at least 90 days in arrears?
Well, there is a problem with mortgages because you had the property boom and collapse. So a lot of people found themselves in negative equity. People's income have been squeezed. We've taken 30 billion out of the economy in terms of public expenditure reductions and tax increases since this crisis began. That's the equivalent of 18% of GDP. So households have been squeezed. Mortgages obviously are a problem. We have reshaped the legal framework to deal with insolvency in this country. And we are putting pressure on the banks to deal case by case with every single impaired mortgage so that we can get balance again in the coming months and years.
And looking back on the disaster that overwhelmed your economy, what do you think the single biggest lesson is? Never trust a banker?
Well, I think there's a number of lessons. One, to have rigorous and clear oversight, to listen to contrarian views, to ensure that we have transparency in the way banking works. And I think the trans-European response to this by having a banking union that we're almost have in place now, a fiscal union that will ensure that every member of the Eurozone has oversight of every other member, so that we can't have profligate borrowing or profligate lending for that matter into the future. I think we've learned very painful lessons, and the Irish people have paid a very high price for it. But we're going to put in place a sustainable economy built on providing goods and services that people want to buy, and create jobs that will be sustained into the future. We're not going to make the disastrous mistakes either in political oversight, financial oversight, or banking that was made in the past.
Irish Minister Brendan Howlin. Next on Jeff Randall Live. Boosting Britain, how bans like this are contributing